everyone, welcome back to my channel if you're new here, and if you have been here for a while and you forgot about me because I've not been here for so long. I am Kira. Welcome back. How are you doing? I hope you're doing fine. I hope you're doing good. Happy New Year. It's a bit late to wish you that, but it's better late than never. And because of that as well, we're going to do our 2023 best books, which I know we are well over 2024 already, but I don't want to miss my streak of doing it every year. And to be perfectly honest, this is the favorite video to do every single year for me to decide what are the best books that I've read in the previous year. In 2023, I have only managed to read 27 books out of I think 45, and I kind of forgive myself for not being able to reach that goal because number one, I read David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, which was almost 1,000 pages. Overall, I'm so proud of myself for finishing that one, but sadly it's not in the list. Number two, because I also traveled to Europe. I went traveling for 2 weeks and a half. I didn't do that much of reading, and so we have few honorable mentions this year. Number one is Blindness by Jose Saramago. I only read it via an audiobook. This is a very dark, twisted, and very questionable, I think morally grey book that is written about this one pandemic of blindness. It's a white blindness. So if you know, blind people usually they can only see dark or black, but this pandemic is a pandemic of white blindness. It's also very contagious, so you can get the white blindness just by having contacts or talking to people who have this kind of infection, I would say. And then we followed the very, I think, first batch of people who had been diagnosed with this white blindness, and this first batch of people has been sent into an abandoned facility where they were supposed to be like quarantined there, but things took turn for the worst because the white blindness spread all over the city, all over the state, all over the country, whereby none of the people but you can see at all. Just imagine how chaotic that would be for the people inside the facility as well, when at first they were given food but it was rationed to them, and then there were people trying to take over the facility. It is so gruesome. It is very, very violent. There are a lot of questions and issues discussed and provided in the book that I am not ready to hear about. All in all, it was very, very good book. I really enjoyed reading it or listening to it. I don't want to talk much about this book because I think that this is something that you would want to go by yourself and experience it yourself because it is a mess. Oh, and then we're going to the second honorable mention, that is Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Metamorphosis is actually one of the like kind of a short novella. I think it's a short story. I think last year I do a lot of existential crisis book. I read a lot of those and it kind of like messed my head up just a bit, but pushes me to think a lot about our existence. Metamorphosis is a story about this man who I believe is the breadwinner of the family, where one day he just woke up and have turned into insect. Is it a grasshopper? I don't remember what he has turned into, but it's an insect basically. His main concern is that he's going to miss work. He's going to miss work, his boss is gonna get pissed, and he did eventually, and that it's going to get rough on his family because they would have to like step up and like feed themselves because he can no longer work. The metamorphosis is not only applicable to him turning from human to insect, but also to his father, and I can see to his sister, to his mother as well, the way they've been treating him, their perspective onto him and whatnot. It's quite heavy. It's very, very interesting, and it's worth reading for sure. So this is the second honorable mention, Franz Kafka, The Metamorphosis. Third honorable mention is this. This is Northhanger Abby by Jane Austen. This is my second Jane Austen, and I think I like Pride and Prejudice more. I read this after I read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This concerns about this very young girl named Catherine. She's a sucker for a dark gothic books. One of her favorite books is The Mystery of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. She's a sucker for that. When she went off to Bath with her auntie and uncle, she was looking forward to all of this, like a very dark and gothic trip, and she decided to follow another friend off to Northanger Abbey, and she has let basically her intrusive thoughts overcame her, give a very bad experience, a very bad appearance about the host, like the host that she's staying with. Nevertheless, it's good, it's entertaining, it's quite mundane, but I really love Jane Austen's writing, so this is the third honorable mention for last year. So let's talk about the top 10 books that I read in 2023, and number 10, it's A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. Last year, I joined Emma from the channel Emmy and Caroline from the channel Caroline Mary Reads. They have a book club where we would read different classics. I think in January last year, we read this. At first, it was a bit hard for me because I never read Hemingway before, but once you got into the story, it was one of the most devastating books I've ever read. It's concerns about this young American man who has been sent to Italy as an ambulance driver in the middle of the World War One. This book talks a lot about the consequences and the repercussions of war. Why do we need war? And the people involved in the countries that have gone to war itself. Truth to be told, I didn't really care about our protagonist because I don't really like him, I think. But I think it's very heart-wrenching the way they manage to hold on to the one thing that you know for certain in the middle of this chaotic war is what affected most of us the most, because nothing is certain during the war. You do not know whether you're gonna win, you do not know whether you're still gonna have your friend, you do not know whether you're gonna live long enough to be with the person that you love. But I love that they're just taking it day by day, they're just taking it one thing at a time, eventually losing it all. But this is the book where I literally throw it across the room after I finished reading it. The ending, I tell you, it's the most heart-wrenching because I think like I didn't expect it to be a love story, so that's why I didn't know that I'm going to get so attached to the characters to the end of the book. Hemingway has a way of writing in which is so simplistic, it's so straightforward, but it's still hard-hitting. So I love Hemingway for that, and I can't wait to read more from him. So that's A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. Number 9, The Hobbit by Tolkien. This is my very first Tolkien. I never read anything from him before, and thanks to my best friend Kila, who had prompted buddy read, although we didn't really read it together, but because I was late, but I love it so much. It's very fast-paced, beautifully written. I love the way Tolkien just like penned the whole world, like the world building, the magic in it. I love everything about this book. I love the adventure, and despite that, it's very cozy actually. It's not really that thick, so you can definitely finish it in a short amount of time. My daughter also loves the movie so much, but I also love the book, so there is that. The Hobbit by Tolkien. Before we continue with another 8 books, I would like to share with you that we once again has collab with booksnbobs.com. If you do not know, booksnbobs.com is an online, but they also have a physical store actually, but it's mainly an online secondhand bookstore which offers you so many good books at a very affordable price. And I also got like few of the books that I've read last year from booksnbobs.com I love their stuff picks. I love their new arrival. So if you want to save some money, you can check out booksnbobs.com and use my code ShakiraBNB and you will get a 10% off over your purchase with no minimum purchase, but this doesn't apply for offer time period. So I hope that I would help you guys on that one. Once again, thank you so much Books and Bob for agreeing to collab with me again. So let's move on. Number 8, we have Angela Carter, The Bloody Chamber. This is quite a spin-off of fairy tales. Beware, because I didn't think that it's going to be violent, but apparently it does. It's very gothic, it's very dark. You can read this during Halloween each time. This is actually a collection of short stories by Angela Carter, and of course my favorite is The Bloody Chamber. Her writing is so immaculate, it's so beautiful, it's so delicious, it's so scary as well. I'm not big on horror and thriller, but I love this one. So you should definitely check this one out. Number 7, unfortunately I lent this book to my husband's friend. This is 100 Years War on Palestine by Rashid Khalidi. I cannot talk about Palestine without breaking down. As much as we think that our power is very limited, we still have our words and our own influence onto the people that we know. So if you want to start to know about Palestine and know how to talk about it, it's very important for you to know the whole story behind it, for you to know how the story started, and to check out the history. I also love this book because I feel like the author has done a very good job in giving out very thorough research, very thorough background of the story, spanning on 4 to 5 incidents. It provides unbiased points in which the failure of certain people, the failure of certain state, and being exacerbated by the support of certain superpowers and the negligence of certain superpowers and the push of Zionism movement to see that we are where we are right now in Palestine. So I highly recommend this book. At the very same moment, I also would like to use my platform, whatever voice that I have, to ask all of us to keep on praying that the genocide will be over, that they will eventually get their own self-determination to ensure the liberty of our fellow Palestinians. Number 6 is this. This is The Body Keeps a Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. I actually started reading this in 2022 and only finished it, I think, shy into 2024. It took me over 1 year to read this book, but I wouldn't hasten my pace at all because it is a very, very heavy book in terms of the talking about trauma and where it touches scientific book actually. So basically this book explores the very effect of trauma on the brain and also eventually on your own body, how your brain actually remembers what you can't remember from the exposure of traumatic events in your life. Like I said, it's very heavy, take it very slow. I did a very good insight on the exploration of how most of the therapists, how clinical physicians visit trauma, try to heal it on their patients. So this is The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. Number 5, another mental health related book. It's a bit and slightly lighter than The Body Keeps the Score, but it is as good. This is What Happened to You, Conversations on Trauma, Resilience and Healing by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. This book format of like a conversation between Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey make it less overwhelming for you to listen to or for you to read, because it's not like straightforward like a heavy science book, but it's a very good book on visiting how trauma has impacted your life, how trauma has impacted the way of you living, thinking, your relationship, so on and so forth. I really love this book. I really learned a lot, and it also pains me a lot to read about certain issues brought up in the book. Take it very slowly, do not rush into this, and I hope that all of us will be okay eventually. So this is What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. Number 4, as I said, I went to Europe for 2 weeks last year, and I visited Paris. And of course, I brought so many books with me to read on my trip. And one of the book that I read in Paris is this. This is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I started reading this book in Paris, like on our way to Paris, and throughout the time when we were in France. This is so interesting. Everything. It's dark, it's gothic, it's very performative in nature. One of the best part is that Gaston Leroux as the author is also a character in this book. If you do not know, this concerns about a man whose mysteries around Paris Opera House is all about. Like, we think that it's actually a ghost, but there are a lot of human-like behavior surrounding this man. Falls in love with this young woman named Christine, and so many other things. So I really love this book. I really get hooked in for the second half of the book, and I couldn't put it down, and I had to finish it. I was really impressed with the whole performative parts of the end of the book. It's everything that you ever needed in a book. I wish that I would like to examine this book more than just merely reading it. So, The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. Really good. The fourth best book that I've read in 2023 is this. This is Electra, Antigone, Philoctetes by Sophocles. This is a very first Greek play that I ever read, and it is so good. It is so accessible. I wouldn't thought that I would be enjoying Greek plays. The story is really captivating. The story is really dramatic. For the first timer like me, I can follow the story very well. And the prose, of course, are really beautiful. This is the prose by Chrysothemis when she's talking about anger that you hold in your heart. Indoors is the place for women. You know that. Why do you come out here where all Argos is listening? Will you never learn? What good does all your empty anger do? I feel what has happened bitterly too. I feel it bitterly. If only I dared, if only I had the strength, I'd show my hate. But I prefer to bend before the storm. So they were talking about the betrayal that their mother had done to their father, to their late father, who was the king before. It comes with 3 different stories, 3 different plays, but I think my favorite Electra and Antigone. But Philoctetes is also as good. But this book, like, it's secondhand, as you can see from booksnbobs.com. So that's why I really highly recommend you to check them out and to see what treasure you can find within the website. So now we're going into our top 3 of the books that I've read last year. Number 3 is this. This is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. This is one of the first books. Like, I think I read this in January or February. We're following this man who I think has fallen into the abyss of depression when he lost his brother, and then eventually met this one guy and had turned himself into a vampire. And then we immediately follow them into their codependent relationship, I would say, with one another, and how he was trying to like get off from him when they eventually did a mistake of turning 6-year-old girl into a vampire. The time went on, and of course, because they are immortal in a sense, the girl had grown up some like mentally, but she's still stuck in her 6 years old body, and then how things have been going downfall from there. I really love this book. This is brilliantly written, and I heard that this author actually write this book as a coping mechanism when she lost her own child. And I think like we can really see that, because this book talks a lot about like the point of life, what is the reason for living, the point of being immortal if you could not be with someone that you love, if you could not go on with your life getting the love that you deserve, and so much more. And I never thought it's going to be that interesting, but it is, and I cried. It is so devastatingly beautiful. So this is it. This is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, and I highly recommend this. Second in rank is this. This is A Man Called Obie by Frederick Beckman. Oh my god, it's very simple, it's very straightforward, but it is so hard-hitting. I love his writing so much. I can read you some of his writing For example, in the evening they had sausages and potatoes. Then they play cards. They never had much, but they always had enough. Obie is this old man. He is so moody, grumpy old man who lived in this neighborhood and always like judging everything that's happening around him, and he's trying to unalive himself because he really wanted to be with his wife. He doesn't really know the purpose of living his life without his wife, so it is so gut-wrenching in that sense. But because he is grumpy, it makes it so funny. Why is he so grumpy? I don't know, but I love this story so much. It just show how much the people who doesn't show love sometimes are the people who need it the most. I really love this one. I highly recommend you to read this one. I'm going to read more from him, and I know that I'm going to love whatever he does. This is A Man Called Obie by Frederick Beckman. And the winner for last year, the best book that I've read in 2023, and this also has crowned one of my best book of all time. So this is Jane Eyre. This is a story about a young woman named Jane Eyre who had been orphaned, living with her aunt, who basically doesn't like her very much. Both of the aunt's daughters and son also hate her, abused her. Then she eventually being sent to church school. It's very gothic. She so like Catherine in Northhanger Abby, she has these intrusive thoughts about things surrounding her. I never really know whether there was a ghost or not in her previous house, but I love the suspense. I love how she wrote about all of those without diminishing the qualities of Jane Eyre herself. So Jane Eyre went to this school and then tried to make it for herself, and then eventually was like graduating, and then she applied to become a governess in this like a big, beautiful and a rich house, where she met the owner of the house, Mr. Rochester. I think it would not be a spoiler if I say that they eventually fall in love with one another. Something happened that I would not spoil it for you to decide for herself whether she wants to be a devout Christian woman or she just wants to be with the love of her life. I think this is one of the most beautiful books that I've ever read, like beautifully written. And the second one is of course the plot. It is so suspenseful, mysterious, and I really like the gothic romance theme in this book. This is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. For 2023, those are all the books that had captivated my heart. I can't wait to tell you about the books that I'm currently reading later in another vlog, and that's about it. I'm gonna see you in my next video. Bye bye.